Like many of you, I've spent a lot of time listening over these last several days to people from the media, Black Lives Matter, advocates, even black entertainers, stand-up comedians, etc., podcast commentators on their views, their philosophies of the racial tension in our country. Why Dave Chappelle tells us, don't worry about the rioting. It's just the streets finally being able to do some talking. Like a lot of you, I'm tired of injustice that isn't being corrected, and yet I'm also sick and tired of those that are using the injustice as excuses, whether it be to act violently, criminally, illegally, or just to continue to pontificate, which does nothing but continue to stir up tension and strife. I think we are all to a place where we simply want solutions. Let me cut right to the chase. Ultimately, the problem of race, that's an evolution issue. I've said it before and I will say it again. As a man of theology, I can flat out tell you God created one race, the human race. All of mankind is a member of the human race. As far as physical and characteristics that are different one from another, whether it be darker skin versus lighter skin, thicker lips versus thinner lips, differences. Instead of celebrating the fact that the Creator made us and designed us different, we have used that as a way to drive wedges between people. One group seeing themselves as superior over another. And no one personified that viewpoint more than Charles Darwin himself, that certain groups of people, i.e. black people, were not as fully evolved, as fully developed. That's why they tend to, quote, look like the ape ancestors from which they came from. Hitler certainly espoused that view. In fact, when Jesse Owens, the great black athlete and U.S. Olympic champion, went to the Berlin Games, they were featuring articles in the Berlin newspaper comparing Jesse Owens and other black athletes to gorillas, to primates, and how it absolutely was a dagger through the heart to the great leader of the Aryan race, a sickly dwarf himself, Adolf Hitler, to watch Jesse Owens beat the so-called master race. That was wonderful. That's a God thing right there. That's just God meting out some real, just, I guess you would call it divine justice right there. But yet, it is the left, it is the secular science world that somehow tries to convince us that it is religion and that it is those on the right that have the racist viewpoints. Well, considering that most people from the right do have a faith-based background, there are problems of race within the church. Where did that come from? That came from liberal theologians at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century who, feeling that, well, we got to have more than just the Bible or people are going to think, we just don't know anything. So they began to blend in the secular, i.e. science of Darwinism, into theology. And they started teaching things that the Bible didn't teach. The Bible doesn't teach race. It'll teach about the differences between different ethnic groups, but God doesn't single out one over the other. The Apostle Paul made it clear, when we're in Christ, there is neither Jew nor Greek. You're either in Christ or not in Christ. But we're all members of mankind, all members of the same race. Yet we make race the issue for everything. And in 2005, the actor Morgan Freeman sat down with Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes, and he gave the answer in dealing with this.
Black History Month you find
Ridiculous.
why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
No, I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
Yes, it's true. There are racist rednecks who hide behind things like the Ku Klux Klan and use that as a way to espouse hatred and racism, to see him as a black man, an inferior man. He's not as good as I am. But the converse is also true. There are racist groups of color who see themselves as the master race. In fact, is not what the Nation of Islam is all about. From the great Muhammad Elijah to Malcolm X to Louis Farrakhan, seeing themselves as a proud master race, lost in this world, yet they never seem to leave here to go back to the place where their race supposedly was born, birthed, and came from to, reestablish their own empire. We keep emphasizing the difference as if that is a bad thing or it makes me a superior thing, rather than just realizing and embracing the fact we are members of the human race. And Morgan Freeman hit it on the head. We have to stop emphasizing and seeing the difference, because the difference is what gets used politically to keep driving wedges between us, to keep the strife stirred up so that the ruling oligarch can do what it wants to do while we're fighting each other rather than fighting them. Morgan Freeman, in 2015, sat down with Don Lemonhead, who was a little concerned that, all the media talks about is race. And Don Lemon, being one of the worst, he is the worst of the race baiters on CNN. Yet in 2015, he was having a dialogue with Morgan Freeman, who absolutely dropped his jaw.
The whole thing, especially the president and Democrats now are talking about income inequality, and that's basically what, when you talk about the richest 85 people on the planet, right?
Yeah.
It's income inequality. Do you think that's, looking at, what's happening in the news now, is that a good idea?
It's a great idea. It is the greatest idea. We have a much more vibrant society when we don't have such a vast chasm between the haves and the have-nots. We need that middle ground that we call the middle class, the people who buy everything, people who use the products that the rich are creating, if they're creating anything other than wealth, right?
Right.
So it's what's happening with the Chinese economy right now. They're changing their whole outlook because they need consumers.
Yeah.
And without a middle class, you're not going to have consumers. You're not going to have it at the level that we normally would have it.
So can I go back to, because I thought what you said was fascinating, because you called it bull when you said people can't, pull themselves up. Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Yeah. I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it, I want to I want to just go, this is over, can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have.
Boom. Didn't see that one coming, did you, Donnie boy? What did he say? No. Income inequality has nothing to do with race. Look at us. Let me just insert this. Look at Colin Kaepernick and athletes who get multi-million-dollar contracts and endorsements and actors and entertainers. And then they come out and they lecture us about how life ought to be. Again, it's not about black versus white. It's not about left versus right. It's not about Democrat versus Republican. It's about them versus us. And the them is that ruling elite class who do want to turn the minority races into permanent underclasses. Why? Because they are the masters of the new plantation. They have you convinced that they're your friend. They've got the programs, the benefits. They empathize with you. They will march with you. They will share your hashtags. And yet the actual laws they pass, the legislation they put forth, does nothing to better you, to improve you. In all actuality, it does more to suppress you, to hold you back. And by the way, the same people that destroyed the nucleus of your family through a welfare state that basically told the men, you're irrelevant, you're not needed, we will support the mother and the children. So basically, you can just go from female to female and be a sperm donor. We, the government, will take care of the rest. We'll give them housing, we'll give them medical, we'll give them free. Because, by the way, your kind isn't smart enough to make your own way in the world. That is exactly what the Democratic Party is telling you. That's where you ought to be upset. But no, instead, you keep embracing them thinking they have the answer. And now they're talking about things like reparations. Reparations. Well, here we go again. Gonna even further make you a member of the permanent underclass. Morgan Freeman, 1989, in a biopic called Lean on Me, portraying an actual, real-life, conservative black principal of an inner-city high school who was despondent over the fact that everything from affirmative action to welfare had destroyed the black community. And in an argument with the superintendent of schools, played by Robert Guillaume, he makes the, I call it, mic drop moment.
We couldn't get it back now if we wanted.
I don't have time for Mrs. Elliott's problem.
Well, you better make time.
We are being crucified by a process that is turning blacks into a permanent underclass here, Frank. A permanent underclass. No, see, nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody. Mrs. Elliott's missionary zeal about Mozart has nothing to do with our problem. Nothing. What good is Mozart going to do a bunch of children who can't go out and get a job?
Exactly. Now, even though that scene played on for a couple more minutes, Robert Guillaume's character did not win the argument. He basically just declared the argument over at that point and then told Morgan Freeman's character, here's what you're going to do. But as far as the intellectual, factual, evidential persuasion of the argument, Morgan Freeman had it right there. Boom. Welfare, Democrats, liberalism, all of this woke, PC, hogwash, right down to Black Lives Matter, is doing nothing more than turning Black America into a permanent underclass. Case in point, look what's happening in Seattle. Look what's happening in inner city America right now. Where is the clarion call? The black leader who walks in the shoes of a Martin Luther King, who rallies people in his culture and says, hey, all we need is a level playing field We don't need you to reset the goalposts for us. We don't need you to change all the rules for us. We just need to be able to follow and play by and have equally treated by the same rules as everybody else. Boom. And it is time for that. It is long past due for that. Nobody argues that. Nobody is defending what happened to George Floyd. Nobody. Nobody. But the continuation of riots is more than just the streets are talking. No, this is what will kill your argument. Because all this does is make people fear and then get angry. And then you lose the argument. Don't take the bait. Don't let the liberals stoke you into thinking that this time it will be different. You go ahead and keep protesting. You go ahead and keep rioting. You go ahead and keep burning. It is time to finally say, if we're really, really going to deal with this subject, we have to stop using it as an excuse. We have to stop overemphasizing differences, and we need to, and I'm looking at us, white America. It is time for equal treatment under the law, bar none. It's not about color. It's not about background or pedigree. It's not about what side of the tracks you come from. Equal application of the law, period. Hey, that's it for this quick rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Smack the bell to get notification of my rants when you click the word all.